Growing up, my sister Alyssa and I were inseparable. She was only a year older, but we were often mistaken for twins, not just because we looked alike, but because we did everything together. From late-night movie marathons to venting about school drama, we had each other's backs. We used to joke that no boy, no secret, no storm could ever come between us. That was before everything changed. Before the scholarship, before the lies, before she became a stranger hiding behind a familiar face. I'm Maya, 17, bookworm, quiet but stubborn. I've always kept my head down, focused on my goals, and tried to stay out of trouble. Alyssa, on the other hand, was magnetic, popular, outspoken. The kind of girl people were drawn to without even knowing why. Teachers adored her. Friends worshipped her. And our parents, well, they always saw her as the one with natural charisma. But for once in my life, I had something they couldn't ignore. I remember the day the letter arrived like it was stitched into my memory. I was sitting at the kitchen table, chewing on the end of a pencil, half studying, half daydreaming, when Mom called out from the hallway. Maya, you've got something from Stanford. I nearly dropped my pen. By the time I tore open the envelope and read the words, "We are pleased to offer you a full academic scholarship," my hands were shaking. I stood there frozen, rereading the letter a dozen times to make sure I wasn't imagining it. Mom screamed. Dad hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. Even Alyssa smiled, at first. But behind her eyes, I saw something else flicker. Something I didn't recognize. Later that night, as the house buzzed with excitement, Alyssa barely spoke. I knocked on her door to celebrate, but she said she was tired. Congrats, she mumbled without looking at me, her voice flat. I told myself she was just overwhelmed or maybe a little disappointed. After all, she'd applied too. But deep down, I felt the shift. Something between us had cracked. For weeks, I tried to fix it. I brought her coffee from our favorite cafe. I offered to help her with her essays. I even skipped a study session just to watch her rehearse for the spring musical, hoping we'd reconnect. But each time, she drifted further away, pulling smiles that didn't reach her eyes and giving answers that felt rehearsed. Then the small things started disappearing. At first, it was just a few bucks missing from my wallet. I brushed it off, thinking maybe I'd spent it and forgotten. Then my earbuds vanished. Then my backup hard drive, gone. One day, I opened my desk drawer to find it rifled through, papers scattered like someone had been searching for something. That's when I started to worry. I brought it up at dinner. Hey, has anyone seen my calculator? Or my flash drive? Alyssa didn't even blink. Why? You lose everything. Maybe check your car? I frowned. No, I'm pretty sure someone's been in my stuff. Dad looked up from his phone. Are you accusing someone, Maya? No, I said quickly. Something feels off. Alyssa leaned back in her chair and smirked. Maybe you're just stressed. You've been acting kinda paranoid lately. It stung more than I let on. That smirk. That tone. Like she was trying to make me seem unstable in front of them. But why? The answer came 2 weeks later, when I overheard something that shattered me. I had stayed late at school for a study session, and when I got home, the front door was slightly ajar. I walked in quietly, just as Alyssa's voice floated from the kitchen. I don't know what's going on with her lately, she was saying to Mom. She's been locking her door, hiding stuff. She barely eats. I even found a weird rolled-up dollar bill on her desk the other day. I froze. Mom gasped. What? Alyssa, are you saying she's using? I'm not saying anything for sure, Alyssa replied smoothly. But maybe you should talk to her. Before it gets worse. My chest tightened so hard it felt like I couldn't breathe. I stepped back, my pulse racing, and quietly left the house again, pacing the driveway under the cold porch light. Why was she doing this? Why was she planting ideas in their heads that I was using drugs? I'd never even touched a joint, never drank, never taken anything stronger than Advil. But now my own sister was twisting my life into something ugly. That night, I barely slept. The next day, Mom asked if we could talk. She sat me down in the living room and asked gently if there was anything I wanted to share. I shook my head. What are you talking about? She glanced toward the hallway, as if Alyssa might be listening. Sweetheart, if you're going through something, we're here for you. We won't judge. I'm not going through anything, I said, my voice cracking. She nodded slowly, but I could tell she didn't believe me. After that, everything changed. My parents stopped leaving me alone at home. They started questioning everything I said. I'd tell them I was going to the library, and they'd ask which one, what time, who with. I was being watched, judged, treated like a stranger in my own house. Meanwhile, Alyssa played the perfect daughter, supportive, innocent, glowing with concern. She'd make comments like, Maya, are you okay? You look pale, or she's been sleeping all day lately, even when it wasn't true. And every time, I could see the doubt grow in Mom's eyes. The worst part? I still wanted to believe it was a misunderstanding. That this wasn't about jealousy or revenge. That Alyssa would come to her senses. That the sister I grew up with, the one who braided my hair and held my hand during storms, was still in there somewhere. But I was wrong. Because what came next wasn't just betrayal. It was war. And I had no idea how far Alyssa was willing to go to destroy me. It started with a whisper at school. I was at my locker, grabbing my chemistry notes when two girls I barely knew walked past me, talking just loud enough for me to hear. I heard she got caught with something in her bag last week. One said, No way. Maya? She's like, obsessed with school. The other one laughed. Exactly. Those are always the ones hiding something. I turned, but they avoided eye contact and hurried down the hall. My heart sank. Something had started, and I didn't know how or why, but the rumors were growing. Later that day, my best friend Jordan cornered me in the cafeteria. Hey, she whispered. Did you hear what people are saying? I stared at her, my stomach twisting. Yeah, I think Alyssa's behind it. Her brows furrowed. Your sister? I nodded slowly, afraid to even say it out loud. She told my mom I'm musing. She's been making things up. I think she's trying to ruin my reputation. Jordan was quiet for a second, then leaned in. But why? That was the question I kept asking myself every night. What could I have possibly done to deserve this? I mean, yeah, I got into Stanford and she didn't. But I never rubbed it in. I even offered to help with her applications. I wanted her to succeed. This was never competition for me. It was always about doing our best, together. But for her, maybe it was different. The next blow came a few days later. I was called to the school counselor's office during second period. My stomach dropped the second the assistant principal knocked on the classroom door. I walked down the hallway like I was heading toward a trap I didn't even understand. Inside, Mrs. Carter sat with her usual calm smile. She gestured for me to sit down. Maya, there's something we need to talk about, she began carefully. A student anonymously reported that you've been possibly using illegal substances. We're not accusing you of anything, but we do take these things seriously. I blinked, stunned. What? That's not true. She nodded gently, like she was trying to comfort a child. I understand how upsetting this must be. But in accordance with school policy, we will have to notify your parents and conduct a search of your locker. My face burned with embarrassment. I wanted to scream, to demand to know who had said it, to prove I was innocent, but I knew how this worked. It wasn't about truth. It was about what looked bad. And right now, everything looked terrible. The locker search found nothing, of course, because there was nothing. But the damage had been done. Word spread faster than wildfire. By the end of the day, I was the girl who got caught. Even though I hadn't. I barely spoke when I got home that night. I avoided Alyssa. I avoided our parents. I locked my door and curled up under my blanket, hot tears spilling down my face. I felt like I was drowning in lies, and no one was throwing me a rope. A few days later, it got worse. Mom called me downstairs with a strange tone in her voice. Dad stood by the kitchen island, holding something in his hand. What is this? He asked. I looked at the little plastic baggie. There was white powder in it. My heart stopped. What? Where did you get that? Mom folded her arms tightly. Alyssa found it under your bed. My whole body went cold. She what? I wasn't snooping. Alyssa chimed in from the doorway, arms crossed like she was the one hurt. I dropped something and saw it. I didn't want to say anything, but I was scared for you. I swear to God, I said, my voice cracking. That's not mine. Someone planted it. Dad's jaw tightened. So now someone's sneaking into your room to frame you? Come on, Maya. I turned to Alyssa, disbelief and rage bubbling in my throat. You put it there, didn't you? Her eyes widened like I'd slapped her. How could you say that to me? She's lying, I shouted. She's been trying to ruin my life ever since I got that scholarship. Mom stepped between us. Enough. We're taking this to a family counselor. This is out of control. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, realizing I was trapped in a story someone else was writing for me. No one believed me. Not my parents. Not my teachers. Not even the people at school who used to say I was too perfect. And Alyssa? She played the role like she'd rehearsed it 1,000 times. Crying when she needed to. Looking concerned in front of teachers. Pretending to defend me behind my back, while twisting the knife deeper every day. And then, one morning, I caught her slipping up. She left her iPad on the couch when she went to the bathroom. I wouldn't usually go through someone's stuff, but something in me, maybe survival, told me to look. My hands shook as I opened her messages. There it was. A thread with her best friend, Kara. Alyssa. She's finally cracking. Even Mom believes it now. Kara. OMG LOL, how far are you gonna take this? Alyssa. Far enough. She got Stanford. I got nothing. Let her feel what it's like to lose everything. Kara. Dang girl, you savage. Alyssa. Just wait. They're gonna beg her to go to rehab. I sat frozen, staring at the words, bile rising in my throat. She admitted it. Every rumor, every lie, every twisted seed she planted in our parents' heads, it was all part of a plan. A plan to take me down, bit by bit, from the inside out. And the worst part? She didn't even feel bad. I heard the bathroom door open. I snapped the iPad shut and ran upstairs to my room before she saw me. I locked the door behind me and burst into tears. This wasn't just about jealousy anymore. It wasn't sibling rivalry. It was full-blown sabotage. She was destroying my name, my future, my life. And she was getting away with it because no one would ever believe Golden Girl Alyssa could be that cruel. But now I had proof. I wiped my face, pulled out my phone, and started taking screenshots of every single message. I sent them to myself. Then I saved them on a backup drive. And on a second phone, I kept in my drawer. She thought she was clever. She thought she was winning. But she didn't realize something important. I might have been quiet. I might have been careful. But I wasn't weak. And I was done letting her rewrite my story. The next morning, I woke up with my chest tight and a storm raging inside me. I had the screenshots. I had the evidence. But what was I supposed to do with it? March downstairs and throw her iPad on the table? Confront her in front of her parents and pray they finally listened? I wanted justice. I wanted her to hurt the way she hurt me. But a part of me, stupid or maybe just loyal, still didn't want to see her completely destroyed. She was still my sister. The girl I built forts with. The girl I trusted more than anyone. So I waited. I spent the day watching her like a scientist observing a wild animal. She breezed through the kitchen with her usual smug smile, kissing Mom on the cheek, complimenting Dad's new shirt, asking me, without an ounce of sincerity, how I slept. I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled back. Great, thanks. She narrowed her eyes for a split second, almost suspicious of my calm. She didn't know what I had hidden on my phone. She didn't know I was no longer the girl crying in bed. That afternoon, I did something I never thought I'd do. I reached out to someone outside the family. Our old neighbor, Mrs. Rivera. She used to babysit us when we were kids, and she was like a second mom to us both. She was kind, observant, and never chose sides unfairly. When I showed her the screenshots, she gasped and covered her mouth. Oh my God, Maya. I knew something was off. Alyssa's been acting strange for months. You believe me? I whispered, almost in disbelief. Of course I do. And your parents need to see this. They've been blind to what's going on under their own roof. But what if they still don't believe me? I asked. What if she finds a way to twist it again? She reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Then you let me be in the room when you show them. I'll back you up. I'll make sure they listen. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't alone. We planned it for that Sunday afternoon. Mom and Dad were both home, which was rare, and Mrs. Rivera came over with a plate of brownies like she used to, just so it didn't seem suspicious. I waited until Alyssa left to hang out with her friends. Then I brought the screenshots downstairs and sat across from my parents at the table. Before you say anything, I began, I need you both to just read. That's all. Just read this conversation. From Alyssa's iPad. I didn't snoop. She left it open. They exchanged looks but took the printouts I'd made. I sat perfectly still, watching their faces shift, confusion, then disbelief, then horror. Dad put his hand over his mouth. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Mrs. Rivera spoke next. I've been watching this unfold for weeks. Maya's not lying. Alyssa's been manipulating everyone. And you two are the last to see it. When Alyssa walked in half an hour later, everything exploded. Mom was sitting on the couch, wiping her eyes. Dad had his arms crossed, staring at the floor. The minute Alyssa saw them, she froze. What's going on? She asked carefully. I stood up. We know. Her eyes darted to me, then to the printouts on the table. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. For a second, I saw something flicker, fear. You broke into my iPad? She hissed. You left it open. She turned to our parents. You're seriously going to take her side? After everything? Enough, Dad said, his voice shaking. Is it true? Alyssa's expression cracked. She looked trapped, cornered. But then, like always, she slipped on her mask again. I was mad, she screamed. She got everything. The scholarship, the praise, the attention. Do you know what it's like being second all the time? Even when I worked just as hard? You didn't have to destroy her to deal with your jealousy, Mom said quietly. You chose this. You never saw me anyway, Alyssa snapped. You never noticed when I was struggling. Maya was your little genius, and I was just background noise. For a long moment, no one said anything. Then, Mom stood up. You're going to therapy. Starting this week. And until you earn back our trust, there will be consequences. Alyssa stormed out of the room, slamming her door so hard the walls shook. I stood there, heart pounding, feeling 1,000 emotions at once, relief, sadness, rage, exhaustion. Mrs. Rivera put her arm around me. You did the right thing, she said, even when it was the hardest thing you've ever had to do. I nodded, but the ache didn't go away. Because the truth was, I didn't just lose trust. I lost a sister. And no amount of therapy could bring that back. The house was quiet for days after everything came out. Unnaturally quiet, no arguing, no laughing. Just doors opening and closing, muffled footsteps, and the kind of silence that screamed more than words ever could. Alyssa barely spoke to anyone. She stayed locked in her room, her phone confiscated, her iPad gone. Mom and Dad tried to carry on like everything was fine, making dinner, watching TV, asking me how school was, but I could tell they were walking on eggshells. Every question they asked came with a pause, like they were afraid of breaking something even more. And me? I didn't feel like celebrating. Yes, the truth had finally come out. Yes, I wasn't the addict daughter anymore. The rumors at school died down once the counselor got wind of what really happened, and some people even apologized. But the damage was still there. The stares. The whispers. The part of me that kept wondering how long my own sister had hated me in secret. Jordan tried to lift my spirits. You should be proud, she said one afternoon while we sat under the bleachers. You stood up for yourself. You didn't let her destroy you. I nodded, but it didn't feel like winning. I just keep thinking about all the times I trusted her. Every late night talk. Every stupid inside joke. Was any of it real? Jordan was quiet for a while, then said, sometimes the people closest to you know exactly how to hurt you the worst. Doesn't mean the good times weren't real. It just means they changed. And that's the part I couldn't stop grieving. The change. The way someone you'd give your life for could look you in the eye and lie so convincingly, then smile like nothing ever happened. Alyssa started going to therapy twice a week. At first, she refused to talk about it. Then, slowly, she started opening up. I knew because Mom told me. She said the therapist thought Alyssa was harboring years of resentment, built up from small wounds no one ever noticed. The way teachers always compared her to me. The way I got praised for being disciplined, while she was called too dramatic. The way I was focused, and she was distracted. None of it excused what she did, but it started to explain it. Still, knowing the why didn't make it easier to forgive. About a month after the truth came out, Alyssa knocked on my door. That alone was surprising. She hadn't voluntarily spoken to me since everything exploded. I hesitated, then opened it. She stood there with her arms crossed tightly over her chest, not quite making eye contact. "I know I'm the last person you want to see," she began. "And you don't have to say anything. I wanted to say I'm sorry." I said nothing. "I didn't expect you to get into Stanford," she continued, her voice cracking a little. "And when you did, it felt like everything I'd worked for just collapsed. Like nothing I ever did would matter next to you." I finally looked at her. "So you tried to ruin my life?" I was angry, and yet jealous. But I didn't know it would go that far. It just spiraled. "No, Alyssa," I said, my voice sharp. "It didn't just spiral. You pushed it. You made decisions. You lied. You stole from me. You manipulated our parents. You made me question myself." She flinched. "I know." I shook my head, tears burning in my eyes. "You were supposed to be my safe place, my best friend, and you turned me into your enemy." Her lip trembled, and for the first time, she looked truly broken. Not angry, not defensive, just hollow. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she whispered. "I just wanted you to know I'm trying. I really am." She walked away, and I closed the door behind her, sliding to the floor with my back against the wood. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, numb. How do you forgive someone who tore you apart piece by piece and only came to say sorry after you survived the wreckage? I talked to Mrs. Rivera again a few days later. She made me tea like she used to when I was little and had nightmares. "You don't have to forgive her yet," she said softly. "Forgiveness isn't something you owe anyone. It's something you give when you're ready. And if that day never comes, that's okay too." "But she's my sister," I said, my voice shaking. "What happens if we never get back what we had?" She reached across the table and touched my hand. "Then you build something new. Or you learn to live without it." That scared me, more than anything. Because no matter how angry I was, no matter how much she hurt me, there was still a part of me that wanted to fix it. That wanted to rewind time to a version of us where everything was still pure, still safe. But deep down, I knew that version didn't exist anymore. At school, things slowly got better. My counselor helped clear my record and documented everything that happened with Alyssa's lies. Stanford reached out to confirm my enrollment, and for once, the future looked like something I could actually reach for without fear. Still, I was different now. More cautious. More guarded. But maybe that wasn't a bad thing. Because when someone burns you from the inside out, you learn how to build fireproof walls. And I wasn't the same girl Alyssa thought she could break. I was smarter, stronger, and finally, free. Senior year was supposed to be the time of my life. I thought it would be late night cramming with Alyssa, college dreams over coffee, graduation countdowns, and crying over yearbooks. I never imagined I'd spend the last few months of high school recovering from a betrayal so deep it nearly rewired who I was. But life doesn't always give you what you imagine. Sometimes it gives you something harsher, but also, if you survive it, something sharper, clearer, truer. After that night, she knocked on my door and apologized. Things didn't magically get better. I didn't jump into her arms, and we didn't cry and hug like sisters do in movies. We became more like cautious roommates. We lived in the same house, under the same roof, but there was a wall between us, built from everything she had done. And though she was trying to tear it down, I had no idea how long it would take before I'd feel safe enough to let her. If ever. My parents tried to patch us up too soon. Family dinners became awkward group therapy sessions, with mom gently prodding Alyssa to share something she learned this week in counseling, and dad attempting to sprinkle in painfully obvious comments like, "You know, Maya, your sister made your favorite brownies today." The worst part? Alyssa was actually trying. That's what made it more complicated. She'd knock before entering rooms now. She apologized when she interrupted me. She'd occasionally leave post-it notes like, "Didn't mean to snap. Hope your essay went well." Or "Borrowed your charger, brought it back. Promise." It was small. It wasn't enough, but it was something. I hated how much I wanted those scraps of effort. How they still meant something. There was one afternoon I'll never forget. It was a Sunday. I was sitting outside on the porch swing, reading, when Alyssa came out with 2 mugs of tea. She didn't say anything, just sat next to me and placed the second mug on the little table between us. Not too close. Not too far. We sat in silence for a few minutes, and then she whispered, "I've been reading about sibling grief." I looked at her, confused. "Grief?" She nodded. "It's a thing. It's when you mourn the version of your sibling you used to know, even if they're still alive." I swallowed hard. She looked down at her tea. "I think I'm grieving too. Not just who you used to be, but who we were, before everything I did." The air grew heavy with truth. "I miss it," she said. "Not because I think I deserve to get it back, but because it was the last time I ever felt like I wasn't broken." My throat tightened. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to tell her that she didn't get to say she was broken when I was the one who had to put my life back together. But instead, I just said, "Yeah, I miss it too." Because it was true. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was honesty. We stayed there, sipping tea as the sun dipped low. It wasn't a breakthrough. It wasn't dramatic, but it was real. And maybe that was enough for now. As graduation approached, I poured myself into finishing strong. The scholarship was locked in. I got invited to speak at commencement. Me, the girl who just months earlier had been accused of being a secret drug addict. The girl who almost crumbled under the weight of her own sister's jealousy. Now, I was walking across that stage with my head high and my story intact. On the night of the ceremony, I stood behind the podium and looked out at the crowd, teachers, friends, students who had once whispered behind my back. My parents were in the front row, beaming with pride. And next to them was Alyssa. She looked nervous, unsure if she had the right to be proud of me. And truthfully, I didn't know if she did either. But I knew this moment wasn't about her. It was about me. About surviving. About rising from the wreckage. So I spoke. I talked about pressure. About family. About identity. About what it means when the people you trust most hurt you. I didn't name names, but everyone close enough to the story knew exactly what I was talking about. And then I said something I hadn't planned. I used to believe that strength meant staying silent. That if I just held my pain tighter, maybe it wouldn't be real. But I've learned that speaking up, even when your voice shakes, is what real strength looks like. There was a pause in the room that felt sacred. And to the people who've hurt others out of fear or pain or envy, I said slowly, just know. Healing is possible, but it starts with honesty, and it has to be earned. After the ceremony, as everyone gathered for hugs and photos, Alyssa approached me slowly, like she was afraid I'd run. She didn't say anything right away. Then she whispered, "That speech. You weren't just talking to them, were you?" I looked her in the eye. "No, I wasn't." She nodded. "I'm still working on it, the honesty, the earning part. I know I've got a long way to go." I didn't hug her, but I did say, "I know." And for now, that was enough. That summer before Stanford was different than I imagined. There were no long sister chats late at night. No goodbye parties hosted together. But there was something new, boundaries, honesty. The beginning of rebuilding, not to who we used to be, but to whatever came next. The day I left for college, she helped me load my car. It was quiet, a little awkward. But just as I was about to close the trunk, She handed me a small envelope. Inside was a note, her handwriting. Maya, you are brave. You didn't deserve what I did. I don't expect you to ever trust me again. But I hope you'll let me try to become someone worthy of it someday. Love, Alyssa. I folded the note carefully and tucked it in my journal. Not as forgiveness, but as a reminder of what I'd survived and what I was never going to let happen to me again. Because this story didn't end with betrayal. It ended with me, standing in my truth, claiming my future, and knowing that no matter who tries to burn me down again, I already learned how to rise from the ashes.